This video is brought to you by Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. We are living in a great time for horror movies. For a few years now, there's been a group of filmmakers who have been pushing the genre to its limits. I'm talking Robert Eggers, Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, Coralie Farjah, Julia Ducournau, and someone we gotta add to this list is Zach Cregger. A few years ago, Cregger's solo directorial debut, Barbarian, ended up being one of my favorites of that year. It was a film that started out feeling a little by the books, that ended up surprising me every chance it got. Even when I thought I got the gist, it switched up and turned into a comedy. It was a film made by someone who clearly had the chops, and I couldn't wait to see his next project. And well, it's here. Weapons is here, and it's, pardon my French, fucking crazy. The story goes, somewhere in a small town, a classroom full of kids go missing. It's discovered that one night at 2:17 in the morning, they all left their houses and T-posed into the night. That's about as much as you need to know. The film stars Julia Garner, Josh Brolin, Benedict Wong, Austin Abrams, and Alden Ehrenreich. I do have to note, my showtime for this was at 2:17 in the afternoon, which I did not understand beforehand, but now that it's a good move. Let me ask you this. Did you see Barbarian? Did you like Barbarian? Because if that's the case, chances are you're probably gonna love this movie. Now, don't get me wrong, Weapons does ultimately feel a lot bigger than Barbarian in virtually every way you look at it. Bigger story, bigger cast, bigger horror, bigger comedy, bigger everything. But structurally, it is very much the same kind of roller coaster that he took us on in Barbarian. An incredibly strong first act, a change in perspective about 30 to 40 minutes in, a weird 10 minutes at the top of the third act that uses a unique lens and serves as a backstory in some way, and an ending. We'll just call it that, an ending. To be clear, I'm not complaining at all about any of this. He had something really good going with Barbarian. I had a really great time watching that movie for the first time. To see him double down on that, but with some material that's a bit meatier, is honestly great to see. Something I love about Cregger's style is that deceptively by-the-books feel he tricks you with, that he ends up flipping on its head multiple times. At first, both this and Barbarian felt like fairly safe horror movies with common horror movie tropes. What I mean by that is jump scares, person knocking at the door, peeking through windows, empty streets. This feels notable to bring up because these days, because high concept horror has been popularized so much, these familiar ideas, the kinds of ideas horror is built on, often get brushed aside for something more sophisticated and big, something meaningful. Don't get me wrong, I like those kinds of movies. I dig Hereditary and The Witch and Raw and Nope, etc. But there is something refreshing and reassuring about what Cregger has done in both of these movies, using traditional horror tropes in ways that still make me squirm and look away in 2025. These tricks still work if done right. Is this feeling enough if there's no greater meaning? This film argues it is. Before I go too far, I do want to gush about the performances just a bit. Fun fact, pretty much all of these actors were going to be someone else before the strikes. I'm talking Pedro Pascal, Renata Rensby, Brian Tyree Henry, and Tom Burke. Of the very good cast we have here, Garner is definitely my highlight. She's one of my favorite working actors, period. If you haven't seen her in The Assistant, I cannot recommend it enough. Josh Brolin is great, and this just kind of reminded me that I haven't seen him in a minute outside of Dune. We miss you, man. And honestly, Benedict Wong was kind of a standout as well. He's so expressive and fun to watch. Just watching him react to other characters is a good time in itself. Obviously, what he does with his eyes at one point in this is, something. I have to say, comedian Whitmer Thomas is in this, and it felt like watching Jack Nicholson in The Shining all over again. He has a very Jack Nicholson thing about him where he's not necessarily scary, but his delivery is perfect for horror. And lastly, great child acting here, specifically by Carrie Christopher, who never misses a beat. I expected nothing less from someone who was in Mank. Technically speaking, I got nothing bad to say. It looks fantastic, it sounds fantastic, it cuts fantastic. I do love how the score for this does that modern horror thing that started in Annihilation, where a note sounds kind of like a blend of distorted synths and voices. At this point, it feels kind of played out, but here they bump it up a notch. Every time a beat comes in the score, it feels like someone is knocking down the walls of the theater. Very much worth seeing and hearing this in IMAX if you can. Something I will say is, while this is certainly well cut, I do think the structure this chooses to go with, this Magnolia-inspired multiple perspectives thing, makes the film feel a bit longer than it actually is. Maybe it's because the first chapter is significantly significantly longer than a good amount of the others. I don't know. I'm just someone who is very used to having a sense of knowing where in a film I am or where in a story I am. And because of how this chooses to go about its structure, I had zero concept of both where things were going or how much longer things were going. And honestly, it's kind of nice to just let go for a little bit. On that note, tonally speaking, this is definitely not what I thought it was going to be, and I'm also not complaining. The film is hilarious. It's a lot funnier than it's marketed itself as being, which is the exact same shit that happened with Barbarian. I done got Craig'd again. That said, I do think this leans into the comedy a bit more, and instead of feeling awkwardly out of place in critical moments, like it did sometimes during Barbarian, it actually feels like it elevates certain scenes, if anything. There's a real crucial moment that ends up being played for laughs that I just absolutely loved. On that note, and this kind of gets at what I was saying earlier, but recently it feels like horror comedies have been boxed into a certain lowbrow category, or like they can't be treated on the same level as the so-called elevated horror films. If your horror movie is funny, it has to be stupid, like Cocaine Bear or The Monkey. Stupid is fine, but who says a funny horror movie can't feel huge, can't be treated like the big boys? Weapons is that movie. It proves all of that wrong. This thing feels like a full meal whilst never losing sight of its personality, and once again, I love that. It's refreshing. I would say it's less Magnolia and more Coen Brothers in just how funny and sad and scary it is all at the same time. Perhaps the film's greatest strength and weakness is how it handles the intricacies of its plot, balancing all these different characters and keeping it under this one specific umbrella, making it so they all lead to one satisfying place. The film has to be tightly screwed in with barely any room for error for that to work. It succeeds at this, and is in the process also a great mystery thriller on top of being a great horror film, but somewhere in there, you do lose that room to breathe. If I wanted anything more out of this, it was getting to know these characters beyond their 2 or 3 most obvious personality traits. I wanted more from Miss Gandy, more from Paul's marriage, more from Archer's strong connection to his son. Not that this necessarily needs anything more to succeed at what it wants to be, that is a ridiculously entertaining horror flick, but it's the kind of thing that would take this to the next level and would make it hit just that much harder on a rewatch. I'm really scared to rewatch this someday, as I'm not sure, knowing where it goes, if it would hit the same. I know this drifts into the trauma-based horror trend I was praising this for avoiding earlier, but come on. There's a world where deeper character development can exist without diving too deep into that cliche. At the end of the day, though, this pretty much knocks it out of the park at what it wants to do, and I had a total fucking blast with it. I can't remember the last time I was this genuinely entertained by a horror movie. It hit real nice. I also got a real kick out of the guy a few seats away from me who was so scared at one scene that he was flutter kicking in his seat. That's how you know you're doing something right. And you know what? Shit, I'm pretty sure that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Go watch Weapons and form your own opinion, and before you head out, I'd like to thank this week's sponsor, Squarespace, the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Perhaps what I love most about Squarespace is their cutting-edge design. With Squarespace's collection of cutting-edge design tools, anyone can build a bespoke online presence that perfectly fits their brand or business. Squarespace offers a complete library of professionally designed and award-winning website templates with options for every use and category. No matter where you start, your website is flexible to what you need, with intuitive drag and drop editing, beautiful styling options, unrivaled visual design effects, on-brand AI content, and more ways to list what you offer. No experience required. You can also get discovered fast with integrated Squarespace SEO tools. Every website is optimized to be indexed with meta descriptions, and auto-generated sitemap, and more, so that you show up more often on search engines and bring in more of your ideal customers. And to top it all off, I know you guys got videos out there. I know you're aspiring filmmakers like myself, and Squarespace makes it incredibly easy to showcase your expertise and engage clients with video content on your website. That's right, you can upload and organize videos, create stunning video libraries, and even monetize your content by adding a paywall. Perfect for online courses, exclusive tutorials, and even premium workshops. Head to squarespace.com/Karsten for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, use offer code Karsten to save 10% off on your first purchase of a website or domain.